The rain fell like iron on the stones of Blackwater Keep. Inside the great hall, Lord Aldric Veyron stood before a mirror that shouldn't exist. Its frame was carved from bone, and the glass showed things that weren't there. "You're certain about this?" His voice trembled, just slightly. A lord should never show fear, but tonight was different. His advisor, a thin man named Corvin, adjusted his dark robes. "My lord, your enemies gather at the border. Duke Maros has 3,000 men. Your garrison has barely 800. Without help, without this, Blackwater will fall before winter comes." Aldric stared at his reflection. He was 43 years old, and he looked every day of it. Gray streaked his beard. Scars crossed his face from a dozen battles. His father had held these lands for 50 years. His grandfather before that. The Veyron name went back 6 centuries. And now it would end. Unless... "Tell me again," Aldric said. "Tell me what it costs." Corvin stepped closer to the mirror. In its surface, shapes moved. Shadows that writhed and twisted. "The ritual requires blood. Your blood. And a promise. You must serve the entity that answers your call. Not forever, but when it needs you, you must answer. And in return? Power, my lord. Real power. The kind that wins wars. The kind that makes men kneel." Aldric closed his eyes. He thought of his daughter, Elena. 16 years old. Beautiful. Kind. She was in the South Tower right now, probably reading by candlelight. If Maros took the keep, she would know. He wouldn't think about that. "How do I begin?" Corvin produced a dagger. Its blade was black, blacker than any metal Aldric had ever seen. It seemed to drink the light from the torches around them. "Cut your palm. Let the blood fall on the mirror. And speak the words I've written here." He handed Aldric a piece of parchment. The words weren't in any language Aldric recognized. They looked wrong. They felt wrong just to read them. "Once I speak these words, there's no going back?" "No, my lord. The pact, once made, is binding." Aldric took the dagger. The handle was cold. So cold it burned. He pressed the blade against his palm and pulled. Blood welled up, dark red in the torchlight. He held his hand over the mirror. The blood hit the glass and stopped. It didn't run down. It spread across the surface like roots, like veins, creating patterns that hurt to look at. Aldric began to read. The words tasted like ash, like decay. Each syllable made his tongue feel heavy, made his head pound. But he kept reading. He read all of it. When he finished, the hall went silent. Even the rain seemed to stop. The torches flickered, and for a moment, Aldric thought nothing would happen. That Corvin was a charlatan, and this was all just... The mirror cracked. Not shattered. Cracked. A single line right down the center. And from that crack, something looked back. Aldric stumbled backward. Gods. It had eyes. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They blinked independently, each one focused on him with an intelligence that was ancient and vast and utterly inhuman. "Who summons?" The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. It rattled Aldric's bones. I am Lord Aldric Veyron. I seek power to defend my lands, to protect my people. Power has a price. What will you pay?" "Whatever you ask. Within reason." The eyes narrowed. Some of them closed. Others opened wider. "There is no reason here. Only transaction. I will give you strength. I will give you soldiers who cannot die, who feel no fear, who obey without question." Aldric's heart raced. "And what do you want?" "When the time comes, you will open a door. You will speak words. You will allow passage." "Passage? For what?" "For me." Aldric looked at Corvin. The advisor's face was pale, but he nodded. "Just once." I accept." The mirror exploded. Glass flew everywhere, but none of it touched Aldric. The shards hung in the air, spinning, catching the torchlight. And then they turned black. Solid black. They reformed into shapes. Human shapes. 6 figures stood before Aldric. They wore armor that seemed to be made of shadow itself. Their faces were hidden behind helms that showed no eyes, no features. Just smooth darkness. "Your soldiers," the voice said, though the mirror was gone now. The voice came from the figures themselves. "They will not eat, will not sleep, will not question. Command them." Aldric swallowed hard. Can they fight?" One of the figures moved, faster than Aldric could follow. In an instant it was across the hall. Its hand shot out, and the stone pillar it touched crumbled to dust. "They can fight." "Huh? How many can you give me?" "6 now. More later. When you prove yourself worthy. When you keep your promise." The voice began to fade. The presence in the room grew thinner. "Wait," Aldric called out. "When will you call on me? When will I need to open this door?" "When the stars align. When the 7th moon rises. When the barrier grows thin. You will know." And then it was gone. Just Aldric, Corvin, and the 6 shadow soldiers standing motionless in the hall. Corvin exhaled slowly. "My lord, you did it." Aldric looked at his hand. The cut was already healing, but the scar that formed wasn't normal. It was black, like a brand, like a mark. "Yes," he said quietly. "I did it. Gods help me, I did it." 3 days later, Duke Maros and his 3,000 men arrived at the borders of Blackwater. They made camp. They prepared siege equipment. They sent a messenger demanding Aldric's surrender. The messenger returned with a single word: "No." Maros laughed when he heard. "The old fool. He has 800 men. We'll be inside those walls by sunset tomorrow." But that night, the screaming started. Maros woke to chaos. Men were dying. Not just dying, being torn apart. In the darkness, 6 figures moved through the camp like death itself. They didn't tire, didn't bleed, didn't stop. By dawn, 700 of Maros's men were dead. The rest had fled into the woods. Duke Maros himself was brought before Lord Aldric in chains. "How?" Maros demanded. "What are those things? What have you done?" Aldric stood on the walls of Blackwater Keep, looking down at the broken army below. His daughter Elena stood beside him, her hand on his arm. "I've protected my home," Aldric said. "I've done what I had to do." But when Elena wasn't looking, Aldric stared at the black mark on his palm. And he wondered what door he'd agreed to open, and what would come through when he did. In the shadows of the keep, the 6 soldiers stood motionless. Waiting. Always waiting. And somewhere, in a place between worlds, something ancient smiled. The pact was made. And the debt would be collected.